respected Siddik sir, dear Manju, and dear Anitha. Actually, Siddik has given me a tag that is, I'm a veteran and so I don't need any PPT. So, with his permission, I'm just avoiding the PPT and just straight away going into the topic that Siddik sir has assigned to me, rather. And I should appreciate Siddik sir for conducting a seminar at this, in spite of all the odds, because nobody will dare to conduct a national seminar when Hartal call is being given. So it is it is something which we all should appreciate, conducting a national seminar. Coming to what he has asked me is that what is the interface between the SGDs and the Constitution? A very straight topic has been given to me. And as far as the topic is concerned, the constitutional perspective as far as the development is concerned, it's very clear as far as some constitution is concerned. In some constitutions, it is implied, and in some constitution it's not that clear, it is ambiguous. Now, as far as analyzing the constitution perspective towards regulation and development, we have to strain ourselves. Because in the Indian Constitution, we don't have an article which says this is the constitutional approach towards development. This is our identity towards, our perspective towards development. We don't have a clause in an article in our Constitution. So, being so, I cannot say that, since the Constitution is not clear, I'm not going to come and present a paper, or I'm not going to share my views on this particular area. Because something is there in the Constitution, in the Indian Constitution, which is thrown across the articles. And if we take a second look on the Indian Constitution, we can find that yes, Indian Constitution has a definite perspective towards development. Starting from the very first page itself, or the first introductory remark, which is called the preamble, which says that, which talks about justice. It talks about equality, it talks about political, economic and social justice, and it talks about equality. And this, it also talks about the equitable distribution of wealth. Now, this three criteria, or this three approach can be seen throughout the Indian Constitution. So, equality permeates the Constitution throughout. And this equality concept can be seen in the SGDs also. Because SGD also talks about equality in its full sweep. So, again, if we ask me what is exactly the perspective of the Indian Constitution towards development, the answer is very simple. We have the word that is socialism. Socialism is there, it is shown in the Indian Constitution. Though it was a later entry towards the Indian Constitution, we can find this particular word of socialism in the Indian Constitution. And again, in the directive principles of Constitution, which can be considered as not as a fundamental right, which can legally enforce before a court of law, but you have a wish which has been framed by the framers of the Constitution, and the wish is there in the Indian Constitution, which talks about equitable distribution of wealth and resources among one and all. So socialism is the identity of the Indian Constitution, and we have also introduced newer policies and programs under the term of new economic policy, and also we are talking about neoliberal concepts. So, but still, the base of the Constitution is one and the same. We still go with the concept of socialism. Though we have adopted in 1991 the new economic policy and all the newer concepts of LPG versions. But again, we can find that, slowly, very steadily, government moving, the judiciary also moving with the newer trends that has come across this particular whole concept. Because in the tug of war between the judiciary and the parliament, we cannot see one instance in which, the judiciary questioning the newer policies. When you have nationalism, yes, the judiciary stated, yes, it is a policy which we're not going to interfere because it is a policy of the government and we will not interfere. So the nationalization policies was being okay. In 1991, when we introduced the new economic policies, again the government, again, we had a little bit of problems, and some questions was, it was being taken into the judiciary, and the judiciary again stated, we will not interfere in this particular policy, because this is again a policy of the government, and so we will not interfere. So this is the attitude that has been reflected by the judiciary as far as the policies are concerned. So Constitution has a vision which is called the socialism, and again, in spite of this, we have introduced newer perspectives also. So coming into the interface between the SDGs and the Constitution, as I told you, SDGs talks about gender equality as a right, and gender equality is there throughout the Indian Constitution. Article 14 is there, which talks about equality across one and all, across irrespective of gender, caste and sex. So equality is being assured. Again, you have Articles 15, 16. Again, we have the gender introduced into the right to life, which again comes under the Article 21, which says that right to life includes equality, and it's also an inherent part of your dignity. So gender equality is there. And again, it must be assured as far as whatever aspects is concerned, whether it is education, whether it is healthcare, whether it is the environmental matters, equality must be there, and that is again assured by the Constitution in Article 14, 15, 16 and 21. So there is no conflict as a base matter. SGD and the Constitution, there is a uniform agreement as far as the base attitude is concerned, so that is gender equality. And again, it also talks about the income security, the decent work and economic autonomy. All these words you can find in the Indian Constitution also in Article 39, which talks about equitable distribution of resources. It talks about security that is to be given to the vulnerable people, whether it is men, women or children in a vulnerable area. And again, it also talks about the social security measures that we should give to the people. It talks about protecting the industrial workers. It talks about protecting the environmental aspects. So Article 39 is very clear as far as income security, the decent work and economic autonomy is concerned. And again, the SGD 2, which talks about ending hunger, achieving food security and improve nutrition. If you ask me whether the Indian Constitution does have any article which speaks about nutrition, which speaks about food security, which speaks about sustainable development, which talks about sustainable development, yes, we have. That is Article 39. It is written there, Article 39, which speaks about the whole concept of the duties that state must do. For example, it says that every man and woman have a right to adequate means of livelihood. Again, I must say, it is not a fundamental right, rather, it is a vision of the framers. So vision doesn't mean that, we should always tag this as a vision. If we have resources, if we have abundant resources, there is nothing to hinder you from realizing these particular vision. So it is there in the Constitution, which talks about the ownership and control of natural resources. It also talks about equal pay for both men and women. So actually it is from this particular base that we have enacted a lot of legislations, for example, which assures that the wages must be given, it must be same to men and women. And again, it also talks about protecting the health and strength of workers who are being employed in very dangerous industrial outlets and the area. So again, we have the whole lot of labor welfare legislations which talks about protecting the workers. Who exactly is a worker? Which is an employment unit? What are the manner and what are the basic requirements of an industrial unit? What are the safety mechanisms that a state must provide for an industrial outlet? So all it has been demarcated in these labor welfare legislations and social security welfare legislations. Apart from this, we also have the judicial directions which talks about the basic medical facilities that must be given in the the industrial outlets. So clarity is there as far as talking about the SGD is concerned, and again the Article 42, 43 and 47 also talks about the duty of the state in raising the nutrition level of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and also the other weaker sections. So we have to, in the state, there is a duty on the part of the state to introduce programs and policies so that the nutrition level may be risen. So the constitution, as far as the nutrition aspect is concerned, it is very clear, and it again in SGD 3 it talks about ensure healthy lives and promote well-being of all people. Here again we can find that again clarity is being given as far as this particular SGD is concerned, because the target of SGD 3 is that by 2030, I think it's Dr. Manju's area, that is relating to the maternity mortality issues and relating to the health and aspect of the vulnerable group. So as far as the target is concerned, definitely there is a target which says that which says that we have to ensure universal access to sexual and reproductive healthcare services, including family planning, information and education relating to the reproductive rights. It is there. Now, this again is being translated as far as the constitution is concerned. You have Article 47, which says that, which talks about the rising the level of nutrition and also the health of weaker sections. Apart from this, you also have a provision which is being added under the penumbra of Article 21, which talks about right to health, which says that right to health is a fundamental right of one and all. Irrespective of your economic status, irrespective of your geographical barriers, irrespective of your caste, your creed, you have a right to health which has to be assured to one and all. And again, on the pretext of this, we can find that the state has introduced a lot of legislation so that we can ensure quality as far as the healthcare is concerned, and also ensure access to healthcare services. So it may be a legislation which talks about regulating both the public and private hospitals. It may be a legislation which talks about ensuring the quality of primary health centers. So it is there. So right to health is there, which the only problem as far as right to health is concerned is that we are really not aware of the existence of this particular right. And again, we have a little bit of problem as far as to when we should. When is the point, or what is the point in which you can say that this particular right to health is being violated? And again, what is the right time in which we have to approach the judiciary or the concerned person so that you can say that your right to health is being violated. So SGD 3, which talks about the health aspects, yes, there is a provision, there is a constitutional backup which says that there is a provision which talks about right to health in the constitution. And again, quality education, which also is another target as far as the development goals is concerned. Quality education and access to education. So, including lifelong learning opportunities to one and all. Here again, we can find that it talks about education facilities being given to being free of cost to one and all, especially irrespective of whether you are it is a girl or a boy or a girl, you have to give access to education. That is, primary and secondary education must be given to one and all. And again, the target is that by 2030 universal access must be given to one and all. So here again in the constitution you have a provision which talks about not about a wish or a dream, but the constitution talks about right to education to one and all. So there is no ambiguity as far as this goal is concerned. Constitution is very clear. You have to provide education to one and all, and it started as a judicial verdict, judicial direction, which told that each one of us has a right to education, and it took nearly a couple of years so that we introduce this as a provision as an amendment in the constitution which talks about right to education, and this provision can be found in Article 21A, and so now it is a fundamental right. So we have to provide right to education to one and all, irrespective of the gender or the geographical barriers. And in tune with this particular article, we have also enacted a particular piece of legislation which ensures that, which is called the Right to Education Act, which ensures that, which nearly clearly tells you what are the duties of the state. The state has to provide the infrastructure, the state has to provide the financial backup, the state has to provide the necessary human resources so that, it is not that, the schools are there, but the schools should really function. So I remember my dear friend Manju speaking in one of the seminars, her experience as far as while visiting Wayanad was concerned. Shelter houses was there. Shelter houses was being constructed, but you have shelter rooms without doors. I still remember that. And again, the state had an explanation for that because, door constructions comes within another department, and building a shelter house comes in a different department. So it is not that, you should have a right, you should not have a legislation, but you should have a full bill so that, this particular right is being realized by one and all. It is being enjoyed by one and all. That is the more important thing. And again, SDG 5 talks about gender equality and empowering all women and girls. Now, if we have Article 21 which talks about your right to life, and it says that right to life is not mere animal existence, but beyond that. Right to life means, you ought to live with dignity. So again, you can find that there is no conflict as far as this particular SDG is concerned. Gender equality is there, and the vision of 2030 is to ensure gender equality through all. Now, recently we are witnessing another form of questioning as far as the gender equality is concerned. We have a judicial verdict which says that, this is your right. Women, this is your right. There is no need of being or still being in fetters. You are free to go anywhere. You can go anywhere, you can enjoy your right. You can pray anywhere. You can jump into any temple. You can be free, you can go, move, or you can remain outside. But again, we can find a set of people within this particular class itself saying that we don't want to enjoy this particular right. We don't want this particular right. Really, we don't want this. We are comfortable in the fetter in which we are. We don't want right to equality. We don't want right to worship. And we don't really want to enjoy right to life in its full form. So it is in this context that we have to rethink about this particular gender equality. And again, on the basis of Article 21 itself, the state has enacted a couple of legislation so that, the right to life for one and all is being, especially the woman gender, is being protected. We have laws. Again, the SDG talks about, it talks about, when you just go through it, it talks about there are several countries in which there are no laws which talks about the domestic violence. You don't have laws across many countries. But in India, we do have a law which talks about protecting women from domestic violence. Violence in any form, whether it is economic abuse, whether it is physical abuse, whether it is emotional abuse, whether it is verbal abuse. You have a law which protects a woman from domestic violence. And this particular law, it gives a lot of friends to you. It gives you police officers, it gives you magistrates, it gives you protection officers, so that, you can approach them. Or you can say that, your friend has a problem and you can tell them that, my friend is facing a particular domestic violence problem, please do help us. You can go to them and seek help. Or the victim herself can approach this particular officers in any form. And again, these officers are equipped to give protection to the victim. The officers can, they can take the victim to the nearby medical or the hospital and give the first aid, whatever it is necessary. And again, if the victim wants to go back to her house, the state must be there so that, the victim must be in a safer zone. If the victim has a right to go back to the house in which, she met it with the violence, but from the day when she is back in the house, she should not suffer any more domestic violence. So the state must ensure that, must ensure safety in that particular house in which, she is residing. Again, if she doesn't want to go back to a house, again, she must be taken to a safer shelter house. So all this being incorporated in this particular legislation. And again, we do have laws which talks about equal inheritance rights for daughters and sons, but again we have certain personal laws which still keeps mom as far as equal inheritance is concerned. We have disparity as far as the Hindu laws are concerned. We don't have a same line running across the Christian, the Muslim and the Hindu law, because very many times we find difficulty as far as regulating the personal laws are concerned. Whether it is the judiciary or whether it is executive, it is a little bit of, they consider it as a dangerous zone, so that, they can actually encroach upon this area of personal law. But again, the judiciary is making remarkable changes as far as introducing equality in the personal law field. Because recently we can find that, legislations which ban triple talaq has been introduced. So we can find changes slowly being introduced in the personal law field. And again, it also talks about protecting the sexual and reproductive rights of women. Again, we have the right to abortion, the decision making, the autonomy that has been introduced in Article 21 very clearly, very firmly that has been introduced. And also we have legislations which protect the rights of women in all its three phases. We have the MTP laws which again protect the rights of women in all the in the initial stage, and again unto the 12th week. And again, if there is a complication in the 20th week, again, you can prove there is a complication and women can ensure their right to abortion. So again, we have laws in tune with Article 21 so that, you can protect the rights of women in its full swing. SGD 6, which talks about availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for one and all. Here again, we can find the constitutional glimpses. We have right to environment and which is being read in Article 21. And again, you also have Article 43A, which talks about protection and improvement of environment and safeguarding forest and wildlife. So if you read both these provisions together, you have an article which talks about protecting your environment. You have a fundamental right which talks about, right to safe environment. You have a right to free, pollution-free environment. You have a right to clean water. You have a right to a healthy environment. So the Constitution is very clear. Apart from that, the Constitution is also very clear as far as protecting the environment is concerned. When you try to interpret certain case laws, you can find that the judiciary very clearly stating that you have to protect the environment. You are just holding the environment for the next generation. It is not that you should plunder the environment now and here itself. You safeguard the environment for the next generation. So introducing the public trust doctrine, wherein you are just the trustees. You're just passing the environment from one generation to other, and you cannot plunder the environment. So perfect as far as the right is concerned, the protection is concerned, and again the safety aspect is concerned. The Constitution, the judiciary, and the laws are clear. The laws are also very clear once again because you have the Environmental Protection Act, you have the Air Act, you have the Water Act. And you also have the Environmental Protection Act, and in that you also have the Coastal Management Regulation Act. So you have the law to protect the marine resources, you have the law to protect the coastal resources, you have the law to protect your air and water. Now what is the problem when you have laws like this? So I know you will ask me the same question towards the end. If everything is perfect, then why you find violations happening? As law is concerned, you have laws, and the Constitution is also very clear. And SGD 8, which talks about sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment and decent work for one and all. Again, we can go back to Article 38, which talks about protecting the rights of workers and vulnerable sections of the society. and again, which again talks about equal pay for equal work, and also the protecting the health and strength of workers. And I'll just stop within 5 minutes. So again, SDG 10 and 11, it talks about reducing inequality among the groups. And SDG 11 also talks about making cities and human settlements safe and sustainable. So SDG 13 talks about combating climate change. Here again we can find that, you know, for Article 48A and 21 can be introduced so that, you know, our environment is being protected. Then SDG 14 talks about sustainable use of oceans, seas and marine environment. Here we can find that, you know, apart from the directive principles and fundamental rights, you have one more gadget, that is the fundamental duties, which talks about protecting your heritage, which talks about protecting and improving your natural environment and surroundings. So you have a provision in the fundamental rights, you have a vision in the directive principles, and you have a fundamental duty. As far as the protecting the environment is concerned, and also saving all of us from the impact of climate change. So that is also very clear. And again, the last one, that is promoting the ecosystems, maintaining the forests and combating deforestation and protecting the biodiversity. Definitely we also have these provisions. And the last of all, ensuring access to justice to one and all. Here again, talking about justice, as I told you, right from the preamble we have the notion as far as justice is concerned, ensuring political, economic and social justice to one and all. So there is no ambiguity as far as this particular vision is concerned. And again, we also have ensuring access to justice in the directive principles, which says that, you know, the justice must be assured, free legal aid must be given to one and all. That is again, it is being given in the Constitution. So as far as the targets are concerned, reducing all forms of violence so that, you know, you can enjoy your access to justice in a full swing. We can find that, you know, the laws are there to ensure that, you know, this justice is being ensured. Just talk about ensuring justice in your workplace. You have a law which talks about ensuring justice and equality. You have a sexual harassment act that is preventing sexual harassment, which is being enacted in 2013, which provides that, you know, the environment must be very safe and sound. And again, there must not be any harassment whatsoever. Even your a sort of glance, you know, if it is not welcomed by your colleague, you know, it will cause harassment. So again, you have powerful laws which, you know, which curtail harassments as far as the workplace environment is concerned. Again, you know, articles, SDG 16 also talks about reducing violence as far as children are concerned. When you talk about life, the right to life of a child is also very precious. So Article 21 does talk about right to life of a child. Again, as I told you, Article 38 also talks about the protecting the life of the vulnerable group. Apart from this, you know, we can find that rampant abuse of children takes place, especially the sexual violence of children happening crisscross the society. And to stop the violation, we have a legislation, a very powerful legislation, a very friendly legislation as far as the children is concerned. That is the POSCO Act, which talks about the preventing sexual violence as far as the children are concerned. So children, the minor children, if you subjected them to sexual abuse, you know, the only thing that the law says is that, you know, you can end up in the jail for the rest of your biological life. It is not 14 years, but for the entire biological life, you can be safely enjoying your life in prison. That is the power of this particular legislation. And again, the legislation is also very child friendly because, you know, the manner in which evidence or the child should be asked questions about the incident, and the manner in which you must collect evidence from the child. You must be very friendly. If a police officer is there, the police officer should not use police uniform, but he or she, especially she must be in a civilian dress. And again, there is also a clause in the law which says that the law the offences. If you just the offences and the cases must be end in a very speedy manner. Again, I'm just reserving, you will ask me what is the fate of different cases, Still you can find offenders languishing in the prison without having the end verdict. But yesterday I think you have read a verdict which in the newspaper which talks about 20-year life term for a particular person. This is obviously because of POSCO Act. So, coming back to the introductory part, as I've told you, the constitutional perspective towards development, it is not clear. We have to read into the Indian Constitution the perspective of the Indian Constitution towards development. And if we just read into the Indian Constitution, we can find that, yes, Indian Constitution talks about welfare state, Indian Constitution talks about socialism, and that runs across the Indian Constitution right from the preamble itself. There is no conflict as to any of the SDG goals or the targets that has been ensured. That is the 17 goals and the targets that has been stated. There is no conflict. The Constitution is perfectly fine with the targets. We have legislations which has taken this constitutional promises ahead. The only thing is that we have hitches here and there as far as the legislation is concerned. So at times, as I told you, as far as right to health is concerned, we are not aware as far as the existence of the right is concerned. As far as the laws, as far as for example, the POSCO laws are concerned, we take a little bit of time to enact this particular laws. So problems are there, problems are here and there, but these problems does not stand against the goal of ensuring gender equality to one and all, because gender equality is there throughout. So gender equality must be ensured, and probably this seminar will help you to realize that we have the gender equality is a right of each one of us, and that we should not go by the fanciful terms of fetters, but try to enjoy the gender equality in its full swing. Thank you, and thank you, Siddik sir, for giving me an opportunity. Thank you.
There is a gender bias. I am the only Siddik sir and the other are friends.
Yes. I know Manju right from my childhood. I know Anitha from she is my colleague, so I cannot counter. No, you are not my colleague. You are a very respectable director of the national seminar, at least for 1 year.